Alrighty folks, it's the weekend and you know what that means? That's right, time for another video. In the past, we've talked a lot about video editing, how to shoot video, hacks, how to color grade. We've even talked about camera settings to get the best quality film and photo to the point where if I compile all of it, it sounds like sci-fi mumbo jumbo. A shallow depth of field. Lots of cameras come with white balance settings. As I mentioned before, I have the A6300. If you guys know what a mask is, that's basically all you're doing. And that is RGB split and a block split, something called an f-stop. I pre-composed all of it. So let's get this LED out of my face and then we add a small LEP to finish it off. However, there is still one thing on this channel that we haven't really talked about, something we have never really gone in depth about before. Every time it comes up, I've either done a time lapse or skipped it entirely and just show you the end product. I am talking about my photo editing process. How do I edit my pictures? How do I make them pop? What is my editing style? Tips and tricks, details shy. We want the details. Well, in order to teach this beautiful process, it might not be that beautiful. In order to do this, we need pictures. So Emily and I are gonna go hiking.
Pick you up at 8 and then we zoom. And I don't really party, baby. I hope that you're cool with it. Wherever we go, look, mama, let's take it easy.
Okay, everybody, we're back. Showered and cleaned and refreshed. It's perfect. So let's get this ball rolling already. Go ahead and open up our files to today's pictures. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna look through all the previews of my photos and see which one I like. Okay, this one is pretty good. I like this one of my wife at this bridge here, so we're gonna use this one. Like every good photographer, I have shot also in RAW. I've made RAW photos. Right click and can open with Photoshop. That's why all of these files are Photoshop files, because they're gonna open as a CR2 file inside of Photoshop. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. The first step is to open the raw image through Photoshop. This is the main editing stage. I have only two real steps, like only two real stages to go through. And this is the first one, and it's the longer one, the most important one. This is where I fix my temperatures, my lighting, the contrast, and the colors. That's all done right here. Okay, so here we are. And as you can see, we have our photo opened up here. This is kind of like a Lightroom built into Photoshop, kind of. So my wife's hat is supposed to be white in this image. So we're going to color balance that to her hat. Perfect. We're gonna be working in the basic tab first. This is what it should look like, color balanced. And let's just mess around with the exposure. Let's go ahead and mess with the contrast a little bit. Right about 4, looks good to me. Doesn't need a whole lot of contrast because we're in a shady part of the park. I'm gonna lower the highlights so they're not so blown out and killing the photo. Along with the whites, because they're really harsh on my wife's hat. So we're gonna bring the whites all the way down. Shadows, I think they're fine. I think the blacks are fine where they are. We want to raise the exposure just slightly so it doesn't look so flat. There we go. I also absolutely love to boost the detail through the texture and the clarity and the dehaze. I always love to mess with that just to see what can happen, but mostly because I like the sharpness and the realness to it. So let's go ahead and add some texture. I love to add texture mostly when I'm doing portraits and nature shots, and since this is both, we're definitely going to add it. And some clarity as well. Dehaze, I don't think we're going to use it all, so let's just not use dehaze. And that's the first step. So if we look at the before and after, that looks so much better. That looks pretty professional quality. Next is the overall color using the Hsl correction. And that's under the color mixer tab. You have hue, saturation, and luminance, so Hsl. So with hue, we can change what the reds look like and oranges and all these colors. Now I like to do red, orange, and yellow for skin, green for any kind of foliage I might have, aqua and blue. That's usually for if the sky or if there's water in here or atmosphere, anything like that. And then purples and magentas are kind of like my backup skin tone. any like last minute changes. Like our ears are usually a little bit more magenta. So that's what those last two are used for. Obviously, some photos are going to deviate from this because, I don't know, maybe it's in the middle of fall and the leaves are red. So obviously green is not going to be my foliage color changer or anything like that. But usually that is what I stick to if the photo is normal enough. But sometimes the model is wearing certain colors or the environment is different colors. So don't always count on that. But right now, let's just focus on her skin. She looks pretty good, actually. I don't really think I need to change anything about her skin. Let's mess around with the orange. Yeah, you can see if I turn the orange all the way over here, she looks sunburnt, and we don't want that. But we do want her to look a little bit more alive than if she were at 0%. So let's go to about -15. All right, yellows, you can see that the lighting is being affected by the yellow tab, and so is my wife's hair and her swimsuit. So I actually kind of like it more on the orange side. So let's do about -67 for the orange, for the yellow. All right, green. I always love my greens to be dark. I like that deep dark green right around there. That looks pretty good. Aquas, that's mostly probably going to be in her clothing. So I'm going to turn the aquas all the way down. And I'm going to boost the blue, and blue kind of just helps the aqua stick out a little bit more. But as you can see, if I start going too far, it looks a little too green. So we're just going to stick right around -20, -30, right around there. Let's do the purples. As you can see, that's not affecting anything at all. And I'm sure the magentas aren't doing anything either. So let's go ahead and move into the saturation. The one thing that I don't like about this photo is that the green is just staring me in the face. It's so loud. So we're going to slowly bring the green back until it looks pretty normal. At around -15, because I desaturated the green, it's not popping out so much. It's not attacking our eyes. I do want to raise the blues and the aquas so we can see that her clothes stick out a little bit more right around there. And also the orange. I want to see her tan better along with the orange in the swimsuit. I want that to stick out too. So that looks pretty good. For luminance, the only thing I might want to fix is the reds. Just make it a little bit lighter so we can see and highlight some parts of her clothing. That looks pretty good. Those are the main two steps that I do in the first stage. And we'll save it to the desktop so I don't lose it. And then I'll file it away later. Let's do another photo. Let's toggle through what we have. This one looks pretty good. 1719 right here. Let's open up the raw file. Okay, well, this part of her swimsuit should be white, so that should fix the color balance. Let's get some contrast in here. I don't want the shadows to be too harsh on her face, so we're not gonna overdo it. Let's bring the highlights all the way down so we can see the sky better. Let's bring up the shadows just a little bit so we can get some more detail in the tree. Let's bring down the whites quite a bit, again, so we can see the sky better. Let's bring down the blacks just barely, just so we can get those shadows a little bit softened. Hey, texture, again, portrait and nature. We're obviously gonna do some texture right around there. Looks pretty good. Now we can get some texture in the tree, on her face. Her skin's looking a little bit more lively. Clarity, I don't really think we need clarity. So that looks pretty good to me. That's just the basic correction right there. That's just the basic correction right there. So let's go down now to our Hsl corrections, the reds, oranges, all that. Her skin actually looks kind of red, so I want to plus 44. So it looks pretty neutral throughout all of her skin now. She doesn't look more red in the face than anywhere else, so that's good. Let's mess around with the oranges. She's very much affected by the orange tone. I just want to lower it by 10. That way she looks a little bit tan still. -15. That looks good. Yellows, I want to make that more orange. I don't know why. I just think it looks more pleasing and vibrant. The green, let's change it up a bit. Let's make it a little bit more yellow this time. That way her swimsuit can actually match the foliage a little bit. Aquas, I'm going to go all the way to -100, and I'll boost the blue so that way our sky looks pretty teal. Purples, nada, nothing's happened there. Magentas, same deal. So this looks pretty good. Go to saturation. I really want to boost those yellows so we can see the trees popping out. All right, for green, let's boost the green because that's what we affected to look yellow. So now the foliage is really sticking out. The aquas, I want to desaturate. The sky looks a little too vibrant. So let's desaturate the aquas and the blues. And this looks pretty good. So instead of just saving right away, let's go ahead and open it in Photoshop. The reason is that whole process is nice and all. However, we can't mask anything out. We can't selectively color anything. And I always, if I can see my actress's eyes, I would like to make them pop a little bit. And here's how we do that. I'm gonna go to adjustments. We're going to go to curves, and we're just gonna blast the highlights out like crazy. And your photo is done. Just kidding. Let's go ahead and hit Control-I and invert that mask. Let's get our paintbrush and let's make it pretty big. Let's zoom in here where we can see her eyes. This brush is a little big. We want to make it about the size of her eye. And the light is coming from this direction. So that's where I want the mask to be seen. So I'm going to put that there from this corner. There we go. And let's go on ahead and make sure that it's not touching anything but her eyes. So let's get rid of it around the iris. Let's make sure the eyelids are not affected or her skin, just like that. And then also, the other thing is we don't want her pupils to be affected either. So let's lower that and let's just paint her pupils back in. And if we zoom out, she looks like a creepy jaguar. So we're actually going to lower the highlights quite a bit to right about there. And now her eyes are standing out. You can see her eyes better. But again, they look just like pure white eyes, and that doesn't look very good. So what we're gonna do is my wife has green eyes. So we're going to go to Hue Saturation, Colorize, and we're just gonna make them green right about here. Let's saturate that. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll just invert it and we'll just color her eyes in to look green. Just around the eyes. We don't want it to touch her skin or anything. Let's make sure that it's not on the eyelid. Right there. Boom. And now, again, her eyes are just glowing, which is not what we want. So we're going to lower the saturation quite a bit. And maybe if we go back to the curves, we can lower that too, just right there. That looks like a good photo. If we zoom in, that looks more natural. So we're going ahead and save this one. All right, that is all there is to it. I hope this brought some insight to a lot of you because again, I've taught a lot about how to get from point A to point B, but I've never really taught what to do once you get to point B, at least for the photo side of things. I hope this was able to help you get across that bridge once you get into your editing stages. What do you do there? I'll see you guys on the next episode of Fluffy Flamingos.